This presentation is about revising informative content. What is informative content? Informative content is a written, oral, and/or visual message that makes a claim about reality. Now, that's not meant to sound philosophical, but truly that's what informative messages are trying to do. They're making a claim about the way things are. And they're doing this for a reason. They're doing this in order to form an audience's understanding about a topic, to form that understanding, to correct it, to give the information that's necessary. It must enable or make able the audience to change their understanding or transform their understanding, and it must enable them to act on that understanding or transact. So typically we don't think there is much action item to informative content, but there is something to that. It does change their understanding, and it does give them the ability to act on that understanding. It's informative. Revising informative content requires attention to two important elements. First, the controlling idea, which is the general claim about a subject. What is the writer trying to make happen in the reader's mind? Then, the supporting detail. And these are the facts and explanations that help the reader understand and accept the controlling idea. So those two parts. Within the second part, for supporting detail, there are 6 strategies to do this. There's defining, describing, giving examples, comparing and contrasting, classifying, and using outside sources. So first, defining. And defining terms helps audiences that are non-experts, who don't have an understanding about the topic. There are a few ways to define. A formal definition will include the term, so look at the example, a green roof system, followed by the class or category to which it belongs. So a green roof system is an extension of the existing roof. So the class or the category is extensions of existing roofs. Within that category, there is one item called a green roof system. The last part of a formal definition is what makes that one item or term different than all the other items in that same category. A green roof system is an extension of the existing roof that involves a high-quality waterproofing and root repellent system, a draining system, and so on. All of these characteristics, in this case characteristics, differentiate it between all the other items in that class. So that's how you write a formal definition. Operational definition is a little different because it describes the term in terms of the conditions under which it's being defined. So file extensions could be put into a formal definition, but in an operational definition, we're just talking about what it accomplishes or how it functions. File extensions are a way. Notice it's different because it's talking about the manner or way of doing something, so it's operational. File extensions are a way of letting the user and their computer know what type of program created any given file. So that operational definition doesn't do the same sort of moves that a formal definition does. And then of course there's the extended definition, which requires a lot more description, examples, comparisons, and so on. So again, definitions are about helping non-expert audiences understand the information, and it's an important move to make to increase the informativeness of the content. The next strategy for supporting the controlling idea is describing, and it again helps non-expert audiences. In descriptions, you stay relatively objective because you're describing things as they are, and to be more informative, it gives detail. For example, it might give quantifiable terms. 18 feet would be more descriptive than large, so it's more detailed in that way. Plus, its ultimate goal is to provide a rich image for the reader to understand the object or the process that's occurring. Giving examples is relatively straightforward because it says what it is, but what it does is it develops generalizations or unfamiliar concepts or abstract ideas that non-experts might not understand. So it might give types of the generalization. A double play has subtypes, so it then goes into the 2 types. For example, this, and then for example that. And it should be representative of what it's trying to support. So parasites are not only blood-sucking insects. So just mentioning fleas and ticks as examples is not representative. There are other sorts of parasites. The next strategy is comparing and contrasting, and again it helps non-experts understand unfamiliar in terms of the familiar this time, or the abstract in terms of the concrete, so things that are unfamiliar to them or things that seem abstract. Comparisons focus on items that can focus on items from the same domain. So 30 decibels is the sound level of a quiet office. That's quite helpful to compare that sort of abstract measurement to something that people might be familiar with. Or it can focus on two different domains, which is what the point of an analogy is. So instead of 30 decibels is the sound level of a quiet office, they might say something about feeling rather than hearing, or something about the way that it helps you think. 30 decibels would cause you to be distracted. These are completely different domains rather than talking about sound levels in different ways. Contrasts, of course, are about focusing on the differences in the items. And this strategy is helping the non-expert understand something that's unfamiliar in terms of the familiar, or the abstract in terms of the concrete. The next strategy is classifying, and it helps non-experts understand how ideas are related. So it's a matter of categorizing something, some unfamiliar concept or term. It should have consistent classifying principles, so they should not overlap, and these should be clear. That way the reader understands how you're categorizing the term or the concept. And lastly, using outside sources can help develop informative content. By citing different sources, you can increase that informativeness. But really, outside sources help with persuasiveness, which is the next lecture. And the reason it helps with persuasiveness is because we get to see where you got your information, not just understand the information. So that's revising informative content.